there have been some recent developments concerning Sony's next foray into the console gaming space that I just had to cover given the focus of this channel, and it begins as follows. PlayStation 6 receives an update that confirms what we were either afraid of or want to hear, depending on your perspective. I am a big fan of backwards compatibility support for two reasons. It helps preserve our favorite video games of yesteryear, and it means we can play titles from previous gen on a new system, and in many cases, they will have a resolution and frame rate boost. When it comes down to the preservationist side of the argument, I for one would be more than excited to see the first 3 generations of consoles emulated on the brand new PlayStation 6. Hello fellow travelers and welcome to the Hard Light Network. So from my last video on the subject, I may have given some of you the impression that I am not a fan of the PlayStation console. That, however, could not be further from the truth. On the contrary, I'm actually a lifelong fan of Sony's gaming console. However, I have just been dissatisfied in the recent years with the direction that the company as a whole has taken. Not only with their hardware, but with their IPs as well. You see, for those of you who have been following me for a longer period of time, you might be well aware that my very first game that I ever played was Resident Evil on the original PlayStation. Franchises like God of War, Devil May Cry, and Onimusha have been staples throughout my household for the entirety of PlayStation's history. And in fact, just recently I've acquired 2 hard copies of some of my favorite PlayStation 2 games of all time, Rygar the Legendary Adventure and the original Kingdom Hearts. However, there have been some recent developments concerning Sony's next foray into the console gaming space that I just had to cover given the focus of this channel. That's right, today we're going to be covering some updates surrounding the PlayStation 6, but before we get into today's article, I gotta remind you guys to please hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss out on any content that I've got coming up for you in the future, and also hit the comment section down below with what you think of today's video. Your support helps this channel grow and also spreads these videos to other gamers so they can stay up to date on the latest in gaming news. Thank you so much for watching, and without any further ado, let's get into this article. And as always, today's reading comes down to us from the Gaming Bible and is entitled, PlayStation 6 Update Confirms What You Were Afraid Of. Is this good news or bad news? And it begins as follows. PlayStation 6 receives an update that confirms what we were either afraid of or want to hear, depending on your perspective. I am a big fan of backwards compatibility support for two reasons. It helps preserve our favorite video games of yesteryear, and it means we can play titles from previous gen on a new system, and in many cases, they will have a resolution and frame rate boost. However, there's also a flip side to the benefit of backwards compatibility, and that's some console manufacturers and publishers are too reliant on last-gen games rather than creating exclusive experiences for the new generation. In many ways, Microsoft has led the way with backwards compatibility since the Xbox 360 and its most recent Xbox Series X, which is able to play some original Xbox discs as well as digital titles. The PlayStation 5 can play most PS4 discs, and titles from generations prior are mostly attached to a PS Plus subscription. As I alluded to earlier, I am all for backwards compatibility support, but at the same time, when I buy a new console, I expect new-gen exclusive titles to be a main focus. As reported by Push Square via MP First, PlayStation co-CEO Hideki Nishino has confirmed that when the PS6 arrives, it will be supported by PS5 titles for as long as PS4 has supported the current system. When speaking to Famitsu, Nishino said, "As of today, many PS4 games are being played, and the number of PS5 games is increasing rapidly. It is unlikely that this will suddenly change tomorrow, so there is no doubt that home video game consoles will remain at the center of our business for some time." He continued, quote, "Some people may misunderstand me when I say this, but if you have a cloud gaming on PS Portal and PS5 games running, they may think that we have already entered an era of cloud gaming. However, you still need a controller and a screen in your hand, and we believe that hardware will not disappear just yet. Let's just hope that when PlayStation 6 is released, as much as we love backwards compatibility, it's not too reliant on last-gen titles, because we want new gen console to feel, well, new gen. And to tell you what, guys, I for one am incredibly excited about the prospect of the PlayStation 6 being backwards compatible all the way up to PlayStation 4 titles. And while there have been some risks with the delisting of certain digital titles lately, it's still nice to be able to play them even if you don't exactly own them. When it comes down to the preservationist side of the argument, I for one would be more than excited to see the first 3 generations of consoles emulated on the brand new PlayStation 6. But I for one would also like to see a much greater variety when it comes to the old school classic titles. I mean, sure, while it would be nice to be able to play Onimusha, DMC, or God of War, I would like to see many of the niche titles that have slipped through the cracks in recent years. It would be amazing to see some of the original 007 games, maybe the old Army Men franchise, hell, even titles like Blasta or Gex. It also wouldn't hurt to have access to some of the early Armored Core franchise, or even more niche titles like The Bouncer, Magic Pango, or even Graffiti Kingdom. I could go on for hours about all of the insanely good titles from the first 3 generations of the console that I would just love the chance to be able to play again in modern consoles. And let's be totally honest, guys, as much as I can appreciate the new Sparking Zero experience, nothing can really top bringing the homies over, getting a pizza, a few Monster Energy drinks, and sitting down to play a few rounds of Dragon Ball Z Budokai. And can you honestly tell me that you haven't missed the original Soul Calibur titles? To tell you the absolute truth, there is so much gaming gold that has been just left behind in pursuit of this new generation experience. And to be 100% frank with you guys, I really can't empathize with this position that we need new titles for new consoles. I mean, obviously they're going to create new games for the PlayStation 6. There's no way in hell that Sony would invest so much time, energy, and resources in creating another generation of console just to make it into a glorified emulator. However, I also think it would be financially silly of them to pass up such a great opportunity for backwards compatibility, especially when it comes to those first 3 generations of their console. Why not create a massive collection of classic titles and offer them at a reasonable price? I know there are several gamers out there who are willing to pay $10, $15, even $20 to recapture the experiences that they've had back in the day. And even more than that, giving new gamers the opportunity to play such foundational titles would just be amazing for the system moving forward. When it comes to the system's longevity, I genuinely don't believe that it's best practice to just leave these games in the past. And let's just be totally real here, guys. They are constantly re-releasing and repackaging older content to resell us at a premium. And with titles like the new Onimusha on the horizon, it's the perfect time to release a classic collection, at least for that series. Personally, I've already got a copy of Onimusha Warlords for the PlayStation 2, and I'm genuinely looking forward to picking up a physical copy of 2, 3, and 4 for my collection, but having a digital collection would be amazing. From where I'm standing, Sony seems to be setting itself up to tap into the nostalgia market in a meaningful way that can actually give its customers what they want. They stand to make an absolute bundle on content that they've already created, and that can fund future projects for these AAA titles that cost so much to produce. Plus, like we've already discussed in my most recent video about retro games, it's silly to imagine that older titles hurt newer ones. Just to hone in on that Onimusha example from earlier, I genuinely believe that if Sony was to release a Onimusha collection of the first 4 games, that would do nothing but skyrocket the enthusiasm for the 5th installment that's coming up in 2026. There is an entire generation of gamers who has never seen the release of an Onimusha title, and now would be the perfect time to introduce them to such an amazing, complex series. Not only that, but it would be a great refresher for those players who have played the first 4 games. In my opinion, there's no reason why older generation games and newer generation games cannot coexist and help each other sell more. No matter how hard I try, I cannot bring myself to understand the strange level of paranoia that these companies have towards re-releasing older titles. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching up to this point, and if you're excited about the launch of the PS6 and what it could potentially mean for backwards compatibility and games preservation, please don't forget to hit that comment section down below with your take on the matter. And also, you can do me a solid and help support this channel by hitting the like button and subscribing so you don't miss out on any of the content that I've got coming up for you in the future. There is a lot more gaming news on the horizon and plenty topics for us to talk about in the regular videos on this channel, so stick around, and if you want, check out some of the other videos I've got on my channel. But of course, I've got to get back to it, so as always, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, and until next time, love you guys, safe travels.